Hello, welcome to this CIVITAS course. My name is Mark van Hagen and I work for the Netherlands Railways. My field of experience is customer experience. And I hope that you will learn a lot about the importance of stations in the total journey for the customers. When people start traveling, they always choose the way of the least resistance. That will say they choose the cheapest, fastest and easiest route. Easiest will say that they don't have to think and that they have at the least physical effort. These three budgets people have to invest to experience some quality of the total train trip. So the trip of course has to be safe, the station has to be clean, but also people want a fast and easy movement through the station. But on top of that, they also want some experience and some comfort, especially when they are staying at the station. And especially those last 2 points are very important for total experience of the station and of the total train trip. So this course is about how can you cope with enhancing the quality of the interchange for the passenger, that he feels welcome and that he can enjoy the interchange. At a station, people are always moving around or staying, for example, waiting at a train, but they can also stay in a pub or in shops. And when they are moving, they catch the train, of course, or they get the escalators or the overbridge, for example. In these two kind of mental states, people change between moving, in which case fastness and easiness is very important, and staying, in which comfort and experience is important. So people change from mental states. They are fast going, running, time is an issue, or they are staying and time is not an issue. This is very important to understand why you have to pay attention to both the moving areas and the staying areas in the station. As a human body, we take in a lot of environmental stimuli, like sound, colors, design, smell. All those stimuli are responsible for how we feel. But 95% of all those stimuli we are not aware of. So we are not conscious aware of most of our environmental stimuli, but they do influence our emotions. And our emotions do influence how we score a station or how we behave in that station. So it is very important not only ask questions about the safety and the fastness or the level of information on the station, but also about the senses, like the light, the sound, the smells, the colors. Those things absolutely play an important role in how people feel and how they experience the station. As we are a human body built up of chemical stuff, every human has the same experience. For example, most people like 20 degrees of temperature. Some people might like 18 degrees and some people 22 degrees. But nobody likes 50 plus degrees of minus 40. So because we are all the same kind of human being, we experience the same environment. And this goes for a very small station, like a bus stop, to the largest and biggest station. It's about the stimuli we take in and the complexity which goes with that. And we all react in the same way, on the same colors, the same smell, the same sound. So it doesn't matter if you have a huge station, an underground station, a bus stop, or a metro station. We are all aware of the Deming circle of plan, do, check, act. The most important thing when an architect designs an interchange is that it is accessible, that there's enough room for escape, that the design is okay. But what we often forget is that we check with the consumers, the end users, how they think about the station. So the measurement about how people experience the station is a very important part of the Deming circle. Well, now we developed, based on scientific insights, on evidence-based design, we developed an experience monitor for stations, the Station Experience Monitor. We ask several questions about the basic stuff, like if the station is clean, if the station is safe, if it is accessible, or if people can find information quite good. But we also ask questions about the colors, the smells, the sounds, if they feel happy in the station, and that kind of questions, because that's so important for people who stay at the station. The Station Experience Monitor is a questionnaire. And the questionnaire is about 30 questions long. But the architecture of the real SAM is that you have a total score about the station. Underneath there are 6 themes like ambience, comfort, accessibility, cleanliness and safety, and so on. And underneath that are the final questions. And when you do regression analysis, you can see how important the themes are in the total score, but also how important the different subjects, the different items, the different questions are on the different themes. For example, color might add 9% to the ambience, and ambience might add 33% to the overall score. In that way, you know how important the different aspects on the station are, and you know what you have to do to get a better station score. Who can use the Station Experience Monitor? Every organization which is responsible for the quality of the station, the interchange, or the bus stop. That can be an operator, a transport authority, or a municipality. And how can you use it? In 2 ways. Because the Station Experience Monitor is a standard, it's always the same questionnaire, you can use it as a benchmark. When you have, for example, 100 stations in your network, and you measure them all with the Station Experience Monitor, you can rank them from the best station to the worst station. You can rank them on color, you can rank them on the total score, you can rank them on smell, whatever you would like to. And so you can learn from your best stations and from your worst stations to get rid of the worst stimuli and introduce in the spotlight the good stimuli. Another way to use the Station Experience Monitor is to do a scientific basic score and a 1 score. That will say that you change one thing in the environment, for example the colors or the smell, or you add music on the platform, and then you compare it with the situation before. And the difference, then you know how the station is improved and on which aspects. What we find a lot of times is then when we change something with music or with smell, not only the smell improves or the sound, but also the cleanliness and sometimes the safety. So using the Station Experience Monitor in a way of improving certain aspects can have a big impact on the total score on the station and on other aspects which are not directly influenced. How can you take measures to improve the station quality? Let's give an example. We have one station in the Netherlands that's called Hollandspoor, and we had a very boring waiting room and an area where youngsters were hanging around. At both places we added music, classical, baroque music. And the youngsters were gone and people felt more safe. And the waiting room, which was always empty, was now crowded. So it's a subtle change in the environment, but it does make a big difference in the use of the station. Another example is a small station in the southern part of the Netherlands called Roermond. We added there also music, and people were listening to the buses which were standing there along. That's a very heavy sound on the brain. And we added music and people thought it was more quiet. How does that come? Your brains will attune to the sound, to the bad sound of the buses, but when they get music instead, the brains will tune to the music and think it is more quiet. We also added in the waiting area fake people. That will say we put foil on the wall behind the seats and we put all kind of people in the same lengths as normal people. So your brains think that there are a lot of people around you and you feel more safe. You also can use colored light. Colored light has a big influence on the ambience. For example, we have experienced some tunnels which were gray and well lit, but we dimmed the lighting and we added colored lighting. And that gives a fairy tale-like environment in which people feel happy and very at ease. When you combine different measurements, like adding scent, adding music, adding color, adding visuals together, in which it fits together, it's congruent, then the score of the station goes up very quickly. Good examples in the Netherlands are Leiden Central Station and Rotterdam Central Station, but also in Madrid, Principe Pio is a very good example of a high-quality station in which they did the right things. From all our research, we know that the environment and the people in place play a very important role in the total score of the station. There's a rule of thumb that at every station, about half the score of the total station is made up by ambience and comfort, and the other half of the station by the basics like fastness, accessibility, cleanliness and safety. So the good thing about this is that you can change the environment with quite cheap investments. For example, a lot of stations are grey, and we know people hate grey. But when you use warm colors like yellow, red, terracotta, people not only feel 2-3 degrees warmer, but the paint of yellow and red is the same price than the grey paint. So when you are starting to paint, it's the same price, but you can change the environment in a big way. The good news about changing the environment with subtle stimuli is that it doesn't cost a fortune. When you use, for example, grey paint, you know people are going to hate that. But when you use warmer colors like orange, red and yellow, people get a warm feeling and the score will go up, while the paint is the same price. So other amenities like adding music, adding colored lights, adding a scent, it actually are quite cheap investments compared to making the station bigger, or making the safety better, or making the station cleaner, because that are huge investments and they don't have such an impact as changing the senses of people. This is the end of this e-course. To wrap up, people move and stay in a station. When moving, the basic functionalities are important, but when people stay, the ambience and comfort is important. The good thing about this is you can both measure with the station experience monitor. And we know that staying and the ambient environment makes up half the total score of the station. Thank you for taking this e-course. I hope it was inspiring and that you learned some new things about interchanges and stations. Thank you very much.